You've heard of adventure, but have you heard of a microadventure? What is that? We're going to get into that next with my guest, Carrie Doan, a clarity and pleasure coach who's going to show us how it can elevate your life. Yeah, stay tuned. Welcome, everyone. Here is what to expect from our time together. We're going to set an intention, followed by an easy doodle test and a warm-up. After some brief introductions, you'll get to hear from our guest, Carrie Doan, who will be revving us up for 2023 with microadventures. We'll process the information through a guided visualization and doodling exercise, followed by a rich discussion through which everyone can identify what inspired action they want to take next. All right, here is our spirit of a doodle. This is what brings us to this space, what motivates me to do this work. So go ahead and read through this and then just popcorn out, unmute yourself, and say which phrase, words are jumping out to you the most today.
Enjoy the process.
Enjoy the process as well.
Don't tolerate boredom.
Know when to break the rules.
Don't get attached and forget the outcomes.
Everyone is creative.
Yes.
Know when to break the rules.
Yeah. So really fun, just because it was brought up a few times, know when to break the rules. When I first started doing Doodlecast, some of you may remember Martin, giving a shout out to Martin out there in podcast land. But he said something, we were going through this about breaking rules, and I was like, oh, that needs to be on there. And it needs to be not in the same color. Because at first I was like, oh, it doesn't fit on my thing. And then I was like, no, we're breaking the rules. So it got in a different color, just squeezed up at the top. So that's how that one came to be. Just super fun. All right. So I want you to go ahead, whatever one jumped out to you today, write it down for yourself, because this is going to be your intention for the doodle shop. So I want you to carry it with you. If you're feeling like you're getting a little too serious about something or getting caught up in what your doodle looks like, just remember your intention and shake it off and then keep going. Okay. All right. Time for a little tiny little doodle test. So all I need for you guys to do for me today is make one simple little zigzaggy line. Zigzag. Yeah. I see Isis. I see Karen, Mike, Carrie, Isabel Ann, Liza, Vanessa, Laura. Perfect. All right. So you're all qualified. You're all amazing doodlers. That's all you need. And I picked this zigzag line. I like to pick something different each time because we're going on some adventures today, right? We're doing this. We don't want that solid flat line. We want something that's dynamic. And so this is to inspire you. If you get stuck doodling, you could just return to making zigzags, and that's totally fine. If you just zigzag the whole time, you could still get amazing benefits from doodling. It's also a great way to pay attention. So in a second, Carrie's going to be talking about some really awesome stuff, and nobody's going to be offended in this doodle shop if you doodle the whole time. So if you just feel like doing some zigzag lines, you will activate all three of your learning styles and integrate that knowledge so much more into your brain, which is pretty exciting. So feel free to zigzag away. All right, I want to do a check-in doodle because we're talking about adventures. What we're going to do is I'm going to set the timer for 1 minute. 1 minute on the timer. And you guys are going to do a doodle just thinking about one adventure that you took in 2022. It could be a small little thing or a big thing. Don't overthink it. That's why I'm putting a minute on the timer, because you don't have time to overthink. Just doodle about one adventure you took in 2022. Go. introduce ourselves to each other for a minute. And the way you're going to do that is just say your name, where you're zooming in from, and you could show us your doodle and say a word or phrase or a few sentences about your doodle. So I'm Karen. I'm zooming in from Cincinnati. Here is my doodle for today. The first thing that came to mind was at the very end of the year, we booked a cabin over the holidays just for a couple days, but it turned into a little bit more of an adventure. It was only 45 minutes away, but the weather was insane. So it was a very adventurous drive getting there. And we felt a little like, should we be doing this? The whole time we drove and we're there, and then had to rush back the next day because another storm thing was coming in. So it was a bit of an adventure, but we still had a great
This
time.
is hard to decide because there's so many to choose from, but I am Carrie, also from Cincinnati, Ohio. And this is my very simple doodle, and it's portraying a friend who I took on a night hike microadventure about a month ago. And I thought I was prepared for this one, but it ended up that it was raining at night. And thankfully, my friend was ambitious enough to still go. And so we spent most of the hike slopping through mud, sliding down the hills, didn't fully immerse ourselves in a creek, but got close to it and got really dirty and wet and muddy. But we had a fantastic time. I still got, I think it was a 5-star review. So
Woohoo!
call that a win.
I can go next.
Love it. Yeah,
My name is Liza, and I'm coming from Cincinnati. And over the summer in August, I went to something called Compassion Camp. And at Compassion Camp, there were several different like breakout sessions you could sign up for. And I decided to stretch my boundaries and do a healing touch cuddle pile. So this is my doodle of the healing touch cuddle pile.
That's amazing.
It was a life-changing experience.
Oh, I love it. Thank
I
you.
feel lighter just hearing you say the word, the phrase.
Yeah, right.
It's Mike, and I am in Columbus, Ohio. And unlike Carrie, it wasn't that there weren't many. I had a hard time thinking of a true adventure. But one adventure we love taking as a family every summer is going to visit friends in South Carolina. So I don't know if that's quite right, but like the South Carolina symbol with the moon, and it's just a lot of time on the water, fishing, tubing, just spending time laughing and just really enjoying good people and lots of laughs. And I'm not an adrenaline junkie, so that's typically plenty of adventure for me.
Man, laughter is a sign of a good adventure, I think.
I'll go
Thank
next.
you.
My name is Vanessa. I'm doodling here from the Caribbean in Mexico. And this is, I don't know if you can see the heart. And so this year I took a trip to Hidalgo, to a beautiful place which were thermal springs. It was kind of also one of these ways where you had to drive up the mountain. We thought we were going to fall off with all the equipment and all the people in. And my whole deal about this trip was to learn. It was called Trip of the Dragon Dreaming, to unleash your inner dragon. So I was just set on learning a lot of stuff about my craft, and I realized that what I learned a lot was more self-love, which is why I put like the heart there, and the love went towards like myself, instead of having my mind filled with new things and new techniques. And here I try to break down the chains that I had in my mind, of everything that mentally I had to do. And in the end, I learned how to set boundaries with others. And I learned how to also just not compare myself negatively. So maybe I'm not doing such a bad job after all, compared to what everybody else was doing. So that was kind of the thing, rooming with different people, and it was kind of that experience of being in a group. So it was very life affirming and just taught me things that I didn't expect. I needed to learn. It was something different, very unexpected.
Oh, I love that. Sometimes the adventure can be inner too, right?
Yes, right.
I'll go next.
Yes.
I'm Laura, and I'm in Ithaca, New York, right in the middle of the state. And we drove to Minnesota twice, once in August, and then just last month in December, because my son was there at engineering school, and we went to get him. And so the doodle is our trip. It took us 3 days to get there in December and 4 days to get back because there was a snow and ice storm. totally worth it to get him. But right after we got back, literally about 13 hours after we returned, he got a call saying that he had gotten a co-op that he really wanted in Minneapolis, and they wanted him back January 3rd, which was 2 weeks after we returned.
My name is Karen Richter, and I'm in eastern Pennsylvania, about an hour and a half north of Philadelphia. And I spent some time in Ohio 2 times this summer, mostly Cleveland area, but and I love adventures, I love nature, and so I had a lot to choose from, but what I picked was one that is most meaningful. It had such an important impact on me, and I was in my kayak, and I was just floating along in the trees and the reeds and listening to all of the animals, the frogs and the crickets and things. And I just felt such an overwhelming sense of peace just doing nothing. And it was a good message that I don't always need to be doing something. I don't need to be hiking to the top of the mountain or finishing 5 miles or 10 miles. I could just be sitting, and it can be such a rewarding experience. So that's my adventure.
So there we go. So I took my daughter to Boston, and we went to Fenway, and it was all very last minute. And I'm not really a sports person. It was actually my first baseball game ever.
Oh, that's exciting.
And it was just, I did all the twisty things because it seemed like we got out of the parking garage and I thought, I'm right next to the place. And then we walked the wrong direction, and then we went the other direction. And when we finally got to the baseball game, it was about halfway over. And even that's a really long baseball game, by the way. And so, but it was super fun to just be out in the streets. And it turned out that my daughter's way more like me anyway, and really prefers going out shopping and eating. So we should have just done that in the first place.
Sometimes adventures affirm what you may have suspected already.
But it was good. It got me out of my comfort zone for sure.
Oh, I like that. So it is my pleasure to introduce you to my friend Carrie Doan. Carrie is a clarity and pleasure coach, an entrepreneur, a life enthusiast, and a believer in all things possible. She runs the Clearly Connected podcast and developed a course on mastering emotional and social intelligence, training both corporate and school systems and supporting them toward greater self-awareness and expression. Carrie has been leading microadventures and traveling the world for free for over 5 years. She is passionate about empowering women while supporting them towards their biggest dreams. In her spare time, you'll find her running with her kids or wandering out into the wilderness, seeking out her next macro or micro adventure. All right, welcome, Carrie. I'm so excited to have you. And the floor is yours, my friend.
All right. Well, thank you so much for having me. I am so excited to talk about this because it's been such an integral part of my life and my journey for quite some time now. And it's funny because I was like watching everyone's energy as we're sharing these stories and these little adventures that we have. And I could just see like the smile, everything kind of like lightening, feeling easy and fun. And that is the whole goal of a micro adventure. So before we get into kind of like the nuts and bolts of what is it and how do we accomplish these experiences, I want to start our time today by painting a picture of 2 different scenes for you. So as I do this, you're welcome to either close your eyes, to use your imagination, or keep them open. But the first scene that I want to describe to you is one where, go ahead and imagine that it's a Saturday morning after a really long work week where you feel tired, you feel listless, and quite frankly, a little bored from the monotony of your routine. And you're not sure exactly how to spend the day. Should you catch up on housework? Should you pay this pile of bills that's calling to you? Should you just lay in bed all day? It's 20 degrees out. which makes you want to hibernate that much more. And so in this scene, you decide to cave into your sense of duty and start to slowly pick through your chores. You disregard your lack of energy and you just keep pushing through, right? Maybe you're reacting to your sense of responsibility. As you pick through those bills, you feel your energy further depleting as all of that hard-earned money disappears into the hands of your creditors. And then as you go through the day, by 4 p.m., you wonder what happened to this day. You've lost any thought that something other than the same old can be happening. So you give up, you crawl into bed, and maybe you mindlessly scroll social media for hours until you drift off to sleep to start it all over the next day. So that is scene 1. Now I'd like to paint a different scene for you. And let's go ahead and imagine another Saturday morning after a long work week where you feel tired, listless, and quite frankly, a little bored from the monotony of your routine. You're not sure how exactly to spend the day and feel this little bit of conflict about your to-do list that you have for around the house, but also with this desire to do something different. Maybe something that's just a little fun. It's 20 degrees out. And again, you feel this draw to get into your bed. But also you wonder if maybe there's something exciting for you out in the cold open air. So you decide to override your sense of duty with your sense of desire and decide to prioritize what you want for the day, knowing that there will be plenty of time Sunday to get to all those to-dos. So you decide to call up 3 friends and you invite them out of their routines to just go outside and play a little. So the 4 of you each grab a broom, a ball, and a thermos of hot chocolate, and you pile into the car to go find something fun. You decide to drive to a local river that's frozen solid by the frigid temps. And the 4 of you dive into a romping round of broom ball. You all laugh together, you fall down, you crack jokes, and you drink in the sun's bright rays on your freezing cold cheeks. You notice that you certainly feel uncomfortable from the cold temperature, but also there's another feeling that's present. And that is the feeling of being alive and awake to your senses, to your mind, and to your body. So then maybe you pause, you drink in your warm hot chocolate, you look into the eyes of your friends as you share this intimate moment of connection from the shared experience that will likely be etched in your memory for the rest of your life. It cost you nothing but your time and your willingness to try something new. Then Sunday comes and you easily breeze through your bills, through your chores, and through all of your to-dos with a new sense of energy that you captured from the day before. Life feels easy, full of excitement. And now you're ready to dive into your work week with a new level of enthusiasm that you couldn't have imagined possible 2 days before. So, 2 different scenes, 2 very different outcomes. And I will note that the second story is a true story where my girlfriends and I had one of the most positive, vivid memories of my adult life. And I will never forget that experience. So today I want to share with you how you can create these moments of what I call microadventures that will help you to fully live your life and maximize and make the most of the moments that you have. So before I get into kind of describing it, I want to know, has anyone heard this term before? Microadventure. Liza. Yes, Liza and I have had a few together. Okay, well, given that, I'm gonna get into a definition of an official microadventure. And the way that I describe it is it's an affordable, brief pause from your routine and the daily grind of life. And what it does is it heightens your senses and your emotions. And it infuses your week with this sense of play. There's novelty and there's obviously adventure. And what I like about them is that they can neatly fit into the schedule of a 9 to 5 work week. So, a lot of people, when they hear the word adventure, they think about, oh, this big thing I have to plan for. I have to spend all this energy creating. And micro adventures are not that way. You could literally get off your job at 5 o'clock. You could take a couple of hours or do an overnight if you're extra adventurous, sleep out under the stars anywhere, wake up and get yourself back together to be at work by 9 o'clock the next morning. So it's much more attainable for the average person. You don't have to plan and think so much about it. You can just go and do it and create it on a moment's notice if you want. And what I love about them is that these experiences create a deeper connection to life. And you may also come away with these like new revelations about yourself and others. Like I think it was Vanessa, you said that the adventure that you went on, you learned so much about yourself, like boundaries and self-love. And that to me has been one of the greatest outcomes of these adventures. It's just so much learning can happen. So one of the questions some people will ask me are what does a micro adventure actually do? What are the benefits? And I've mentioned a little bit already that, it disrupts your routine and it creates a sense of novelty and kind of elevates your overall experience of life. So if you think about it, when you're engaging in a novel situation or activity, you're more alert and awake to what's actually happening. So you become more fully focused in that moment because you're outside of that familiar environment that typically you'll operate in this autopilot way. So changing your environment out of the familiar into something more unpredictable will change your sensory experience and literally wake up your mind and body and activate new neural pathways in your brain. So some of the benefits that come with this are like sparks of creativity, expansive and divergent thinking, higher energy, that sense of connection, and just this kind of overall positive feeling of well-being. And I think a greater access to just like a playful spirit as an adult. And I think adults need it the most, right? Because we're the ones that are laden with demands and responsibilities and to-dos, and it can just become so heavy that it's that much more imperative for us as adults to engage in moments of play. So a few examples of my favorite micro adventures and some of the stories that come with them. Obviously, the broom ball one was top of the list. One that I have done a few times, it was high review ratings, was tubing down a local river. And my friends and I pulled off onto this sandy beach. We slung up hammocks and we slept out under the stars all night. Hiking through a cemetery and where you're feeling that closeness to death, and that can kind of open up a different appreciation for life or a different perspective. One thing that I did was I made an aluminum can stove, and my friends and I took it and we went up to an overlook over the city, and we decided to cook some popcorn and drinks over this tiny stove that we created. And one that I did with my children was we slept in a tree house. Well, we attempted to sleep in a tree house overnight and were woken up in the middle of the night by a mama and baby raccoon who were making some pretty aggressive sounds. So everyone got scared and we ran inside to finish off the night, but it was an amazing story nonetheless. So, and I do have so many other ideas. I have a whole master list of micro adventures. The sky is really the limit. And it all kind of depends too on your level of risk tolerance, which I'll get into in a minute. So one question that I get is, are they just for the adventurous types of people? Like, I think, Mike, you said that you're not so much geared towards this, bent towards adrenaline. And so, are they for everybody? And I say, yes, absolutely. It's for normal people with real lives. They're achievable for anyone, kids, adults, anyone who just wants a new experience. And so thinking about the risk tolerance is important, because if you're someone like me who really enjoys kind of like living on the edge a little more, you might want to do something that involves a little more risk, like the river float and sleeping under the stars. Um, if you're okay with like coyotes potentially being close. But if that sounds like too much, maybe you opt for that leisurely walk through the cemetery with a friend, as you just kind of feel that sense of closeness to mortality, and walk away with that expanded perception. So kind of analyzing, like, where do you fall in the spectrum of risk? And asking too, what level of discomfort can I enter into without becoming overwhelmed? So I think we all need some level of like stress, anxiety, or unpredictability in order to grow. But too much of that can actually be counterproductive. So really thinking through, where am I? How much can I tolerate and still like engage this activity and reap the benefits of it? And, some people ask me about fear. So I think it's really important too to create some kind of safety in these experiences. And this could be, relational safety as you go out with a trusted friend or a guide, or it could just be safety in the physical environment as you maybe analyze like the different variables and determine what is your level of discomfort that you could feasibly handle. Because there needs to be some level of psychological safety in order for the whole experience to have that pleasurable feeling attached to it. So, but it's also worth noting that, any kind of fear can be translated into excitement, with that mental rehearsal and reframing, by keeping your mind, more focused on what you anticipate that you'll gain from the experience and not what you might risk losing. So that, like, kind of having that in your frame of vision as you enter into something that's unknown and unfamiliar will keep you open to the experience and trusting, as you shift the energy from that nervousness towards one of more excitement and exhilaration. So, one thing I touched on is this idea too of connection. So to me, pleasure is all about connection. It's not just this hedonistic, impulsive, like gratification of all the senses all the time. It's about connecting to yourself or to others deeply. So thinking about people who maybe struggle with depression and anxiety, well, psychology tells us that a large part of that is because people have a perceived sense of separateness or isolation and disconnection from themselves, from other people, or from like where they fit in the world or the universe. So when you venture out into these unknown experiences and you share that with someone, this isn't rocket science. You probably all have experienced this. You create that bond to people. And, again, maybe you learn something new about yourself, or you realize like, oh, I can handle this thing. I'm more capable than I thought. That can create like a deeper connection and trust in yourself. And, when you're doing this out in the world, especially in the context of nature, you'll start to feel that connection to something much bigger than just you. So I think personally that these reconnecting experiences, they have this potential to literally heal parts of yourself that may have been suppressed or repressed, and spark like a new awareness that there's just so much more to life that you can experience. And so I think these moments, they integrate our minds and our bodies and our spirits to what I call like a wholeness or a deeper intimacy to the self and to others. So when you experience wholeness, that's where all of the emotions, I think, follow the emotions of pleasure, of bliss, of joy, of just feeling elevated. So those are what I think are the greatest benefits of engaging in this way. And some people ask me what actually happens when people integrate this like on a more regular basis throughout their lives. I remember I did this pretty consistently for 2 years with a select group of women, and I noticed some things. In the 5 years of leading these micro adventures, I noticed that anytime that you prioritize play, whether you're an adult or a child, you kind of open up your emotional landscape again to creativity, to fun, to laughter, like we were saying earlier. And a lot of people report that feeling of being alive and being in tune with their body and their senses. Sometimes like this renewed sense of inspiration that sparks those creative ideas. And again, to me, this is very closely connected to the essence of pleasure. I remember when I took that friend on this night hike in the rain, it's amazing to me how your senses will just really hone in differently in the nighttime, for example, than in the day. And you just kind of get this feel of yourself in space and time in a different way. It's just a new awareness. So those are the nuts and bolts of micro adventures and some of my experiences. And I want to share just a few takeaways to kind of highlight the time. And then I want to pose a challenge for you all. So some of the highlights I would just say are that, adventure and pleasure, they can happen in the smallest moments. You don't need to plan something big. It's very achievable and attainable. It's just a matter of being creative, right? Secondly, I think that novel situations are where we grow and evolve. They're where we learn so much, where we open to that creative nature. And microventures, they're all about novelty. You can repeat them, but I think the point is to keep having variety in your experience so you're constantly exposed to something new. Thirdly, go ahead and assess your level of risk, but also be willing to be uncomfortable for the sake of a new experience that you're going to have new insights. And if you don't have any friends who would be willing to go on an adventure with you, I would recommend searching meetup.com. There's so many groups out there of people who hike and run and do all kinds of outdoor activities, or find a guide to take you there. And then the whole point of all of it is to just have fun, right? Like just play, let go of all the responsibilities, the mundane, repeatable daily grind of life, and enjoy yourself like a kid again. So my challenge for you is to think of a friend or two that maybe live close by. And these would be friends that you really enjoy being in the company of. People where you can be fully yourself, be your true self. And I encourage you to think of a simple adventure that you can factor in to the week ahead. So we're looking at starting January 10th, is it over the next week. Is there one activity you can think of that sparks some kind of excitement in you? It could be art, it could be nature, it could be writing and poetry, it could be cooking food. So it doesn't always have to be outside. But I would encourage you to think about what level of money that you want to spend and how affordable that you wish the experience to be. And then just choose the one that's calling to you, that really is like, you can feel it in your gut, that's like drawing you towards it. There's a curiosity and an intrigue there. And then I say, call up your friends and invite them into your activity and just tell them like you want to play, you want to have some silly fun and make some memories together. So that's my challenge to you all. And Karen, I'm going to turn it over to you to start the process, and then we'll see what kind of doodle magic comes out of all this.
Yeah. Raise your hand if you're feeling a little excited about microadventures right now. That was awesome. Yeah. Never actually heard of broom ball, so I might have to try that soon. Might be calling you about that. Yeah, we are going to doodle more about that challenge in a second, but I wanted to open the floor up. If anybody has a question, would like to clarify something that Carrie has talked about, we'll be having a longer discussion with her after a doodling exercise. But if there's any clarifications or quick questions you have, go ahead and take yourself off mute.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So you were talking about the amount of stress that a person can tolerate, and how like there can be like a good amount and then also a negative amount, right? Like if it gets too much. So is there a way to know, like you want to stretch yourself out of your comfort zone, but not too much? So I'm just wondering, like, what kinds of things would you look at in yourself to know how much is too much?
That's a great question. I would say hindsight would be the best teacher, to think about previous experiences that you've had. And I'm surely there have been some that have been overwhelming, and it could be anything, right? And to really assess, what was it about those experiences that created that overwhelm? What were the variables? And so that's probably the best way to kind of analyze where you're at today. But also there is that like sense of uncertainty and not knowing until you try. My recommendation is, if you're more risk averse, to just do something easy, like start really, not too edgy, not like, let's go cliff jumping tomorrow. But to just go slowly, to do something like, maybe it's just a hike, or maybe if you want a little more than that, it's a night hike, right? And then, there is a little bit of trial by error if you don't have that hindsight to inform you. But I would also check in too with like your physical abilities, like if you, let's say maybe you're not in the best shape of your life. Well, that tells you like, don't stretch yourself too far physically by going in a kayak and, canoeing for 8 miles. Just kind of assessing your body, where it's at, what shape it's kind of in, your mind, how much, do you feel like you're in a mentally stable place? Well, then maybe you can handle a little more risk, right? So those would be my first responses to that. It does take a good bit of self-awareness, I think, to be able to like really know that, but also there's that trial and error to like just test the waters a little bit. Definitely take a friend. That always like makes the experience feel safer. Like there's a buffer there, if things get too much, if the coyotes run out of the woods and start coming, which probably will never happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've got a question. I'm wondering if you have any resources of ideas around the informal, like the broom ball idea. We've done a lot of the structured, formalized, zip lining, cooking classes, camping trips. But I'm wondering about this sort of spur of the moment, not needing a company to run it or anything.
Yeah. Well, so I actually have this kind of master list of micro adventures that I'm happy to share with you all. Maybe I can pass that to Karen.
Yeah,
just to get like,
yeah,
brainstorm ideas. Now they're also, I didn't coin this term micro adventure. There's a man, his name is Alistair Humphrey. That's what it is. He's from the UK, and he's the one that coined the term, and he has a website. I think it's like microadventure.com.
Okay.
His are all geared towards outside though. So my list includes more like, art experiences, poetry, cooking. So there's a little more variety, but he has some great ideas on his website. I would say they're a little more on the more adventurous side. But yeah. So Google searches, Alistair, I can share his website as well. And then I'm happy to give you
I
ideas.
can put it in the show notes too.
Yeah.
And I
Thank
can email everybody what Carrie sends me. Be happy to do that.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Carrie.
Mhm.
Let's get into some doodling with us to find what is going to feel good to you all. So I'm going to encourage you to get comfortable for a second. Go ahead and empty your hands. Get comfortable in your seat. We're going to do a little visualization. So I encourage you to close your eyes if you feel comfortable, so you can go within. And just start by taking some nice, deep, slow breaths. Maybe your adrenaline got pumped up listening to that. So we're going to slow it down for a second. Relaxation is key for our inspiration, key for our clarity of mind and our creativity to arise. So let's just take a moment to relax into our bodies. And so much of what Carrie talked about was the idea that microadventures engage your senses. So as you're breathing, I want you to think about your 5 senses. What's one thing that you can hear right now? What's one thing you can taste? Got my afternoon tea in my mouth. What's one thing you can smell, see, feel? And with all of your senses now turned on, bring that challenge to mind. One thing for this week. Let something come up in your imagination that feels mostly fun. Maybe it's slightly risky. That's okay too. Maybe you're slightly nervous, but more than nervous, you're excited when you think about it, or you're intrigued or curious. Start to visualize what it would look like to go do that thing. Who would you call? Where would you go? What would you bring? What would you be doing? And bring your 5 senses into that space. What would you smell? What would you hear? What would you taste? What would you see? And also bring in your emotions. What would you be feeling in that moment, having that experience? The truth is that we're very driven by wanting to feel good. So let yourself feel the feelings of it. And then I'm going to invite you, when you feel ready, to slowly blink your eyes open. And I want you to doodle about what you saw for 5 minutes. Just letting that doodle take you wherever it goes. It doesn't have to look like a particular thing. It could become quite abstract if you want it to. You just want to capture the feeling, some ideas, some thoughts, and be really curious. Let this doodle be a practice as a little micro adventure that you're on. You might have some idea what you're doing or where you're going, but there's a lot of unknown when we doodle. We're letting go of those outcomes. We're enjoying the process. We're breaking all of our rules. All those beautiful things you guys said before. And we're going to keep going for 5 whole minutes. So if you get stuck, zigzag until you feel ready to come back to it. beginning the next part, we are going to share. And this might feel adventurous to some of you. So welcome, lean in if you want to. The way I'd like for everybody to share this time is by simply holding your doodle up and inviting others to say what they see in it. And then also listening as if you had no idea what you doodled. You have no idea. Maybe they know way better than you. Maybe they see something completely different. So we're going to practice that spirit of a doodle part of not being attached to even the idea of what we doodled. So we can really hear and get some fresh ideas and perspective about our doodles. To share, one phrase that I'd like to offer is, if this were my doodle, because then you're speaking from your own experience and what you see, and the other person may resonate with that or may not, and that's okay. So that's how we're going to share. And we've got time for probably 3 or 4 shares. So you can just take yourself off mute and we will get this discussion going around your microadventures. Vanessa's ready to go.
Let's see if you can see the doodle.
Yes, we're good.
So I'm willing to share, rather to hear your input first, and then I can tell you what my intentions are or where.
Yeah, or even just respond with what other people said that was new to you can be fun too.
Okay.
Maybe how that even integrates. That might be too much for one share. I don't know. I just get excited about this. We'll see how it goes. All right.
Well,
So you can share anything you want to. Yeah.
I see connection, community. Obviously, there's some joy happening there. Vibrancy, diversity, creativity. Those are my initial thoughts.
If it were my doodle, I think I would be showing summertime with the green grass and the warm sun. It looks like we're outside having fun. It's very joyful with all of the colors. I wonder if we're supposed to be painting, but it ended up being a big paint fight where we're throwing paint at each other.
That's right.
Yeah, I'll pick up on that. I was kind of seeing like paint splatters everywhere, like a paint. I'm wondering if they're going to do like a mural or something, but it feels really fun and playful. Feels experimental.
And I said summer, forgetting you're in Mexico. It's nice and warm there now too.
All right. What's resonating for you, Vanessa? What do you want to share?
Well, so far, it's, everything you both said resonates quite well. I thought of inviting 2 people over at my house. It's a couple, and I actually don't know them. I met them once. And so the sense of adventure is inviting people that I'm not really close to. But I feel psychologically safe, as Carrie said, because I've been referred to them, so I know they're safe enough. And so the idea is to be outside. I invited them originally to help me paint a wall. And I thought, well, why don't we just make it fun and just kind of make a paint fight exactly like outside, where we just paint colors. And I still haven't figured out how to do it. If we just throw colors at them or what, I guess I can have them pitch in and we can all decide together. I do water therapy, so I'm very good with like hosing myself down with water and other people as well. So I put the water up there. And so I just kind of, the idea of hosing people down after the paint, there's something just kind of fun about it, that's just, it's not for anything but fun. Like usually I put like mud on my face and on my body, but again, that's just productive, in health and beauty. And this is none of that. This is just pure unadulterated fun. And those are the paintbrushes. And that's outside. And we just put on like clothes that we can get dirty, that it's okay. And I have like this like cloth that from Morocco that's blue, and we can just kind of play along with that as well. So we can get all messed up, with all the colors and things.
I love that. I love that. Yeah, one of my favorite things, as soon as it was warm enough, was just my parents would go outside and squirt us with the hoses, like as a kid, and we just like run, like Like we just had so much fun with that.
Yeah,
So
I know.
I resonate. It's fun. Yeah.
I love that too. Here's one other thought too. Now this would be, I love how you don't have an outcome attached to it. But one thing that I did last year with some friends was we had these canvases
Mhm.
and filled some balloons up with paint. It was like a paint water combination, and then tacked the balloons onto the canvases and threw darts at them. So then they would explode, and it created some really cool art. It was so messy. I mean, probably not as messy as what you might get yourself into, which I think is great. But yeah, then there was this thing to look at to remind us of that experience that we got to have at the end. But I think this is a fantastic idea. The
Yeah.
Yeah, I
messy,
love
the
that idea
better.
to have something to remember it by, so we can't look at it, put it on a wall, and remember that we need to have fun.
That's right. That's right. I
I
love
like
it.
that. Yeah, I did think about some kind of cardboard or something, but I just hadn't completely thought in my mind. So I'm so glad you came up with it.
Mm.
I saw this thing once on TV where these people also, like, they were having people over to their house and they got like all those little colorful pom-poms and like pipe cleaner stuff and like paint, and like they just had everybody who came in their house start putting something on this canvas, and then they hung it up, and it was amazing. Like it was
Oh, that's
just
beautiful.
love that, adventurous co-creating. Thank you,
That's
Vanessa.
great.
Fun ideas. Yes.
Thank you for your input, you guys.
Yeah.
I'll share.
Yeah. All right, you guys, what are you seeing? What are you noticing?
Seems to me like there's a lot of love in there with a lot of hearts and a lot of warmth. And yeah, I love it. There's so much to it. Nature and stars and muscles and yeah, that's really cool, Karen.
Yeah, I see strength and water, nature, lots of nature theme.
Yeah, I would definitely felt the nature coming through, but I like this muscle thing you got going on. Something about, I hear the word resilience come to my mind, or strength or empowerment.
Yeah, it makes me think about how we like can grow that muscle for even maybe risk tolerance. Like, the more we do little things, the more we're willing to kind of go a little bit further, or think a little bit bigger, or ask some more people, or, like what strength might be built in you to do things as you experience this. And I love the owl too. Makes me think of like, I don't know, seeing in this whole new way.
The owl stuck out to me, just made me think of wisdom, and the stars. You can only see them at night if it's clear, right? So there's a kind of wisdom and clarity that popped out of that in terms of all the nature and just being in the outdoors.
Yeah. What's resonating for you, Karen? Would you like to share?
It's so fun to hear people take my simple ideas and make it even more meaningful. The clarity and resilience. I just love that. I was drawing a night hike because I couldn't, that resonated with me. But I was trying to be less literal and actually draw the hike. And I was thinking about how do I feel because of the hike, and that's what all the hearts are, that it just feels so good. And the muscle is, feeling stronger, like I can do this. And then this crazy thing over here was just connected with myself, connected with nature. And I don't even know what this is. It was just telling me to draw, so I went with it.
Oh, interesting. Anybody see something with that?
It's funny. I've kept on looking at that, and I was trying to decide if I saw a tree but it was what I came back to was the like a path with you're walking down a path and there's lots of choices. I could go this way, I could go that way, I could go this way, and but none of them are predetermined. They just kind of hang out there, and you get to
Cool.
decide.
And for me, I would add also that it elevates kind of the whole symbolism of nighttime. Because for me, nighttime is just the time where, oh, I have to go to bed and make sure I get enough sleep because otherwise I'm tired tomorrow. and now I just see something else, like the beauty and the glory. And I think that you have that, you put that into that where it's something magical and something special that really is a part of you, you know, regardless of, you know, the task at hand. I feel like it's just part of your psyche, something that happens at night. You have a lot of thinking going on, or some dreams or something that can go into the day as well, and just basically give back the place to the night that it deserves, is what this drawing is giving.
Cool.
I love that. I was really attracted to that shape. Also, the connection that you described as connection. Yeah, I love it because it's kind of like nebulous and like abstract and gooey and like moldable. Like, and that's how I feel when I'm on adventures. I feel like I could almost mold something new for myself. Like, it gives me a lot of ideas for a new path to take or a new way of thinking of something. I become like putty, and like all the same ingredients are really there, but I just can shift them. That's what it makes me think of.
Very fun. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mine is simple and caught me by surprise.
Ooh.
First thing I thought of was just how many adventures are like readily available to me, and I just don't take the time to take them. Like, we have kayaks. We have 3 of them, as a matter of fact. Our whole family could go at the drop of a hat, and we haven't done that. But for me, I think something I've not been looking at as an adventure, and if I did, I'd probably be more disciplined in getting it done, is I've wanted to change up my eating habits and have not been successful in doing so. So going to Fresh Time here in town and doing a little shopping of my own, and getting into the cooking, just because it's totally not my wheelhouse. It would definitely be something new and uncomfortable in a very productive way. And it could become a adventure for the whole family if they have to try what I come up with. So that's what it kind of surprised me that's what came to mind, but that's what came to mind. So sorry, I did that wrong. I didn't let you just look
You're
at it.
so wrong. Well, how dare you break the rules? Oh my gosh.
Right? I broke the rules.
No, can you keep it up though for a
Yes.
second? Because I think
Yes.
this is really fun, and it really reiterates one of Carrie's points, which is just like, it's different for everyone. If it's new and exciting and different and uncomfortable for you, then it's an adventure. And Carrie, I don't know if you want to share this story, but it makes me think of a recent micro adventure that you took with a friend into some places behind stores.
Yeah. Oh, I was wondering which one. First of all, Mike, I love this idea. Because, you know, we go to the store, we probably grab what we normally get all the time. Not, at least I do. And so going maybe even to a different store and just kind of opening some creativity around the food that you want to nourish your body or to cook, or maybe you want to bring someone into a cooking experience. Like, I think that is an amazing way to just take something that's mundane and make it new, right?
Yeah, and I didn't even think about it until you just said that. One of the buddies that I would invite on any adventure he and his family are very much into eating in the manner I'd like to eat. So inviting him along with me to help make those choices and give me some ideas would be the connection and all of that.
Absolutely.
What if he's the one filling your cart? Like, you just have to be like,
yeah, right.
Yeah.
Our family went on a family vacation, and we don't really do a lot of family vacations. Like, we might do a one night, but this was a whole week long thing.
Yeah.
And we thought we had it all planned out. We were going to go to this certain place and it was going to be this big deal. And the one thing that we remember over and over and over was this little Italian market that was near the hotel that we were staying. And we went to that store, I think 2 times a day, almost every day that we were there, just trying new foods, because we had a kitchen in the place we were staying. And it was so fun. And we got Play-Doh sets, and we like, everything came from that store. The only thing we couldn't bring home was plants because we were afraid they were going to fry in the car.
Yeah.
But
adding an element of challenge to it then as well, right?
Yeah, and trying to cook inside of a kitchen that was not our own. And my husband's a chef, so it was
wow,
really fun. And we just that was so funny. I hadn't thought of that. Well, I saw your basket, and yeah, we must have spent like $400.
You're gonna save money by cooking your own food, but that plan failed.
It sure did.
Oh, love it. These are so creative. Yes.
Yeah.
So you want me to share?
If you
the-
have a moment, we'll wrap it up with this. Yeah.
Yeah. So my friend Liza, who's here in the room, she
Oh, I
and
didn't know it was Liza. Oh, I love
Yeah.
this story. Okay.
She actually sparked this one into motion. She said to me one night, she's like, I said, what should we do next? And she said, how about I've always wanted to go dumpster diving. And I said, me too. I've never done that. And so we made it extra fun by dressing up before we went out, and we hit up, let's see, we went to Aldi first and we found a ton of like amazing groceries there, bags of it. And then we drove around to other dumpsters. We found some bags of Halloween costumes that were like in the bag still, brand new. So we got those. And then I think the kicker of the night was at the behind West Elm in the back by the dumpster was a $400 rug, just like out to the garbage. So we not only came home with some like great items for ourselves, but we had a ball. We had this experience that, I mean, now I kind of want to do it more, although it's a little more on the edgy side, I guess, if you want to dive into some produce full dumpsters. You do have to be very careful about what things you're going to take home, but it was definitely a night to remember. So you can add that to your list too.
Yes. So what I want you guys to do, inspired by these stories and ideas, is I want you to write one thing on your piece of paper. Even close your eyes if you need to first, but one thing that will propel this into motion for you this week. What's the first step? What's the domino that will knock over the rest so that you go do this thing? And then be inspired by these ideas, these stories, your own doodle. What's the first domino? If you do that thing, maybe it's just calling the person because then they're going to hold you accountable. Who knows? Raise your hand if you're excited. Raise your other hand if you're a little nervous. Just don't put it higher than the first. You can be like this. Let's do it. I love it. I love it. Well, I know Carrie has one offer that she would like to share with you, and then we are going to close this baby up. So Carrie, you want to share your offer?
Yeah. So one of the things that I help people do is I'll sit down and do like a strategy session. If they want to get really intentional about, like, let's say the year ahead or the next couple of months, like, what are some ideas? How can we create a plan to like actually make them happen? And so anyways, I have an offer right now. I'll put it in the chat. And it is for a $75 hour session. If you or someone you know could use a little more adventure in their lives, but they don't even know where to begin. I'll put it there with the promo code. And yeah, so one of my favorite things to guide and tour. Well, I do literal tours, but I also kind of like help people just come up with a good plan to implement into their lives.
Awesome. And just to clarify, this promo code means that you're going to just talk to them?
Well, yes, this is more like a strategy session.
Okay.
So it could be done virtually if people live far away. Yeah, a 1 hour strategy session on how to intentionally craft this into your schedule with however frequent you want it to happen.
Awesome.
Yeah, and add ideas, and then even thinking through like who would you want to join you on this. So add a dose of accountability.
I love it. Thank you.
Yes, and this is through the end of February, by the way. So
great.
Just a heads up.
I'll put it in the follow-up email and also in the show notes for everyone. So thank you so much, Carrie. That was such a fun discussion to have. I loved all your thoughts around it. Thank you to all of you who joined me live and for sharing your great ideas and your questions to make this such a rich discussion. And thanks to all of you listening out there. Thanks for doodling to doing with us. And we'll see you next time.